Hi there, and how's it going? So, this is my 1972 Mercedes-Benz 350 SL 4.5. It's a US spec car that was originally delivered in the US in California in 1972. It had the designation 350 SL, but the early 350 SLs in the US were delivered with the M117 engine with a 4.5 liter in it. It is painted in Horizon Blue or Horizont Blau in German. And I think it had a respray some years back, maybe 10 years. It was imported into Denmark in 2012 or something like that. So it's been here for about 12 years. I bought it last year in September 2023. It has about 280,000 miles on the clock. So it has clearly been driven throughout the years. I must say I was a bit anxious about the mileage when I bought it, but I went over the car very thoroughly, both underneath and in the engine bay, and the engine sounded healthy. And I can see that it has been maintained properly, and the parts that have been changed over the years have been exchanged with original Mercedes parts. So I guess that's a good thing. But over the past 12 months, stuff has happened with the car, and I think I wanted to show you what has been going on in the business end. So let's take a look there. So this is the business end of the M117 machine here. So what I did to begin with when I acquired the car was, of course, to change all the fluids. So I changed the oil, the filter, and I also gave it a power steering fluid flush, and it looked okay, but I changed it nevertheless. And obviously brake fluid, I've changed the brake fluid and bled all the brakes. That is in order too. Then I also did a coolant flush and changed all the hoses. So all the rubber hoses have been changed on the cooling system. So I flushed the system with demineralized water 3 or 4 times, I believe it was, and then I put in new coolant. So the coolant system and the coolant was actually pretty clean. Again, a good testament to how this car has been taken care of over the years. As you can see, it is the original metal or brass coolant reservoir that hasn't been tampered with. And the fan shroud, I can see on the date stamping just down there that it is from 1972. Pretty impressive, I must say. So I've also changed the ignition system completely, or more or less at least. So I've put new rotor and cap on, new ignition leads, new points, new condenser, new spark plugs. I've also changed the coil. I had the original blue coil from Bosch, but it had cracks on top, and I didn't like it. So I've got a new coil from the SL shop in the UK, and I also purchased this plastic cap to put on top, just to keep out moisture and stuff like that. The This engine has a transistorized ignition system, and we have two ballast resistors just down there. These come out all right. I've tested the resistance, and they still provide the required resistance for the ignition system, so that hasn't been changed yet. So I guess that was it on the ignition system, and then we can move on to the fuel injection, because this engine has the, some would say, dreaded D-Jetronic fuel injection system. And I must say I've had my own fair share of problems with this system, but I've now learned, through mistakes and just trying to dig into it, how this system actually works. So what I've done is that I have serviced all the injectors on both banks, had them pulled out, changed the small rubber hoses that goes from the fuel rail down to the fuel injector themselves. I've changed the small filter in the injector, and then I've cleaned the injectors in an ultrasonic cleaner. Then obviously, since this engine is completely filled with fuel lines all over the place, it is extremely important that you change all the rubber fuel hoses, and these rubber fuel hoses need to be of a nature that can deal with this type of fuel that we have these days. I've also adjusted the trigger points that are situated in the bottom of the ignition distributor. So I have a small tool where I can adjust the trigger points and to make sure that they all send the correct signal to the fuel injectors. Over the course of the summer of 2024, I experienced that the engine was running increasingly bad, uneven at idle, no power at acceleration, and that was where I was really confronted with the D-Jetronic ignition system, or injection system, sorry. But I've been troubleshooting the problem, and I found, for instance, that the MAP sensor, the manifold absolute pressure sensor that sits there and measures engine vacuum via this hose that goes to the intake manifold, and then sends a signal to the ECU that this MAP sensor didn't hold the necessary vacuum, but lost the vacuum quite quickly. So I sourced a new MAP sensor, and that temporarily, at least, solved the engine problem. But it wasn't completely over. So what I've recently done is that I have sourced new engine wiring harness throughout the engine that controls or sends and receives a signal for the D-Jetronic ignition system, or injection system, sorry. So I've put in a new wiring harness. I didn't really plan on doing so. It's quite expensive to source a wiring harness of a good quality. But I've done it now, and it's over with, and I've taken the pain financially, and it seems as if this has really cured the problem. So the engine is running super nice. So I'm happy that I've done it, and then I guess, and I hope that I don't have to think about that for the many years to come. The The valves on the engine has also been adjusted, and for that purpose you need this special wrench from Hassett. It's a 17 millimeter wrench that is required for the job. It is not easy to source, but I found this wrench on a website in Germany. I've also changed all the belts for the power steering and whatnot, and the alternator. So that is also in order. The first thing I did when I acquired the car was to check the oiler tubes in the under the cam covers to make sure that they are lubricated. They have a tendency to go bad, especially the plastic connections. So I've changed them, at least on this side. On the other side, they actually looked quite okay. So I didn't change the oiler tube plastic connections at that point, but it is something that I'm, going to keep an eye out for and change them if I sense that they are going bad. I also checked the timing chain, and I can show you a few pictures here on what the situation looks like on engine timing. And as you can see, it looks pretty good. The timing belt is tight, and the timing is bang on. So I haven't done anything here yet, but those of you who know the M117 engine also know that this is the number one thing to keep an eye out, along with the oil tube situation that I just mentioned. Then the timing chain is crucial. If that goes, bad, really bad, then it is game over for the engine. I've also serviced the auxiliary air valve, which provides additional air during cold starts and in the warm-up phase. And I can show you a few pictures here of what it looks like after I refurbished it. So I took it off. I got it disassembled very carefully, and you need to be very, very careful when you disassemble it, because it's made of aluminum and it's very, very soft, so you need to be very careful. But I took it apart, cleansed the piston inside, and put it all back together, and now it moves freely. Another thing that I've done is that when I got the car, it didn't have any windshield washer reservoir or stuff like that. So I've sourced a new reservoir, new rubber hoses to go up to the nozzles. Down below the coolant reservoir, there's a pump. The pump was still there and is still there. I took it out, and it was completely seized when I got it disassembled. I can see from the stamping that it is from 1972, so it's 52 years old. Pretty cool, isn't it? So I took it apart. It was full of gunk, and I cleaned it. Put a bit of grease on the toothing, and then I put it back together, and now it runs as it should. On these early cars, there's no you can't operate the washer system via the stalk at the steering wheel. Rather, this is operated by a foot switch. just beside the brake pedal. So neither the footrest or the foot switch was there when I acquired the car. So I've also sourced both the footrest and the switch on the internet and put that on and connected it, and now I have a fully functional windshield washer system. Lastly, in the engine bay, I've put in a new insulation pad. It was completely disintegrated and was turning into dust even if I just looked at it. So it was sort of drizzling down in the engine bay with dust. So I took that completely away, sourced a new engine hood pad, and put that on. It had self-adhesive on it, but just to make sure that it stays where it's supposed to, I also applied some glue, heavy-duty glue, and then I put it on. So I think that's about it in the engine bay. However, there are a few things that need to be done over the course of the winter. As I said, I have already flushed the power steering fluid, and that's all fine. But the thing is, I can see, and maybe it's a bit difficult to see here, but these oil lines are not real oil lines. I can see that they are water hoses or heater hoses or something like that. So the thing is, they are, quite greasy, and I'm not sure whether the oil is penetrating through the rubber or what's going on. But I don't like that, so I've sourced proper oil hoses that I'll be changing over the course of the winter, and I'll post a video on that too. Now, another thing that needs to be done is the oil cooler. So the oil cooler is sitting here just next to the radiator right here, and I don't know if you can see it on camera. It's rather difficult to film, but I have a leak going on. There's some seepage in the oil cooler at the bottom here that I don't like, and I've therefore sourced a new oil cooler that I'll be exchanging also over the course of the winter, and I will be posting a video on that, so we'll see how that goes. I've never tried it before, but yeah, how bad can it go? We'll see. So let's have a look at the interior. And as you can see, it's in pretty good condition with the door cards and stuff like that. So when I acquired the car, I took out the door cards to lubricate the window mechanism because I could see that the windows were moving quite slowly. So I lubricated the mechanism, and it needed it. I also checked the vacuum for the central locking, and that seems to hold vacuum. But I must say, I haven't managed to make the central locking work, even though I have checked all actuators, both in this door over there, and the trunk and the fuel filler cap, but I haven't managed to figure out what's wrong. That is on the to-do list. Otherwise, I've pulled out the seats. I can show you a few pictures of that too. And then I steam cleaned everything inside to really get to the bottom of the situation in the cabin. I've also had the mat, the rubber piece reconditioned in there. It had completely disintegrated, and so I have had that stuffed with new foam and then a rubber piece over it. Another thing that I did was that I changed the rubber door sill mat here. The old one was quite okay, but over the course of 52 years, there was some wear and there were holes in the rubber, and I didn't like that. So I sourced new rubber pieces, and then I glued that in with some heavy duty glue. In the cabin here, you can see, as I said before, it has almost 281,000 miles on the clock, but you know, it's fairly decent in here. What I did was that I took out the cluster at a certain point in time because the illumination of the dials was not working. And it turned out to be the potentiometer right there, where you dial up, you know, the strength of the illumination, and that was not working. It's a common problem on these cars. So I hotwired the potentiometer, and then the illumination began to work again. But now it just does mean that I can't adjust you know, how much light there is in the cluster. It is completely fixed at the high point, but I don't mind that. I would put it there anyway. Another thing that I've done is that I have changed the all the bushings in the shifter mechanism. I can show you a few pictures of that too. There are the usual suspects, which is the rubber bushings that goes from the gear lever to the gearbox. These almost always go bad. So I've changed one of them. The other one on the back side towards the gearbox is looking quite okay. But there are also rubber bushings in the shifter mechanism itself. So you have to remove that mechanism and take it all apart. It's fairly easy. Takes, you know, maybe an hour. Clean it up, and then I changed the rubber bushings. I got the bushings from Mercedes, and I think I paid less than $10 for all of them. So that was pretty nice. I also changed the speakers in both sides. They are located just there, and you know, I just got some cheap speakers and exchanged them. So I think that is it inside. There's one thing that I need to work on, and I'll just turn off the lights here. And that is when I turn on the light in the on the car, you can see over here that the light is not working. In fact, I've changed the bulb in there, but you know, the small fitting where the bulb sits is so loose that there's no connection. So this is something that I'll be posting a video on over the course of the winter, how to take that piece of trim off. And I think I can find new fittings online, so I can change those. They have simply grown too old. So in the trunk space, something has been going on there as well. So I've repainted this back piece here. and behind that is the fuel tank. And when I had this cover off anyway, I also checked the rubber fuel hoses going from the expansion tank down to the fuel tank. Everything looked good there. There was a tiny bit of surface rust down in that trunk area space there. And below here, I took out the spare tire. There were tiny spots of surface rust, so I treated that and repainted it in black paint. The trunk lid itself, it's difficult to see on camera here, but it is not very nice. The paint is not super nice on this trunk lid, so I will be taking it off and sending it off to a painter during the course of the winter. One final thing is underneath. I have changed the rear subframe bushings. These are very large bushings. They were a virtual pain to get out. It took me at least a few days to change both of them. I'm glad I did it. The old ones were pretty worn and more or less disintegrated when I finally got them out. So I'm glad I did that. I also changed the fuel filter, the pulse thingy that sits with the fuel pump, and then also the fuel tank strainer that goes up into the fuel tank. So this has also been changed. I originally changed it because I didn't know what made the car run rough, as I said before. So that was part of the troubleshooting. That was to make sure that the fuel delivery system, also from the back, is okay, and now it is. So I think, while I'm at it, I also checked the front subframe. I'll show a picture of how it looks like when the subframe is not good, because throughout the lifetime of this model, the front subframe was subject to cracks, and Mercedes, at least in the US, made some sort of a recall initiative whereby they called in older models, 350, 450, and I guess that's it. Maybe 380, I'm not entirely sure, but at least they called them in and either welded in reinforcements or put in an entire new subframe. I have checked. This has a reinforced subframe in the front. It has not been made with reinforcements. Rather, I think it has received an entirely new subframe. So this was a very lengthy video, guys, and I do apologize, but I wanted to give you a full introduction of this beautiful vehicle. I will be posting more videos as I go along. As you can hear and see, a lot of stuff has been going on already. I wish I had filmed that already, but unfortunately I didn't. But now I will begin to post small videos on stuff that goes on with this car. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and keep cool.